Emergence of private universities, significant growth in the last decade, new age varsities, role in making higher education accessible, rise of entrepreneurship and innovation cells. First, I would like to call upon an educator, a leader who, with close to more than 47 years of experience in teaching, research and analysis, join me in welcoming Dr. S. Srikanta Swamy, academic expert, CollPoll.
Thank you everyone, and I know this is the final panel discussion, and also for me it's a pleasure because except Dr. Swamy, all our known faces, haven't had a chance to interact with them multiple times earlier. So today's topic for our panel is the New Age Universities. So what I would request every panelist here, for the quick in 1 minute, if you could define what does new in the New Age University mean to you. So we'll start with you, Professor Satyanarayana, there. So I'll repeat, what does new in the New Age University mean to you?
Good evening everyone, and I'm sure you have been listening to many things. I would like to thank Indu Global for giving us an opportunity to be here and learn from all the experts. I think the whole world is in a transition post-COVID. The world is looking at India as a huge global value chain enabler in every aspect, even when countries in the age when they're moving away from globalization to de-globalization and even towards inflation and other issues. I think India has a huge role to play both with its demographic dividend and its knowledge capability. I think now the education has to change from just enabling skill and competence to even bringing in character. So that's a character part, whether it's empathy for people, empathy for environment, looking at sustainability, circular economy. So any knowledge process service that we enable as an academic institution has to make sure the knowledge and the skill are first enabled through experiential learning, and this is further rounded up with holistic character and an empathy for the society, which whether it's product, process, solution. And it has to be holistically enabled.
There are more than 981 universities and more than 41,935 colleges all over India. Among this, it is difficult to identify which are the new age universities or which are the emerging colleges. Because after COVID-19, institutions must have been started, but very difficult to label them as the new age universities in my opinion. Because whatever the objectives or the aims that they have started, this transition period did not make them to prove themselves that they are the new age universities. Therefore, in my opinion, universities have come up maybe last 2 years, 3 years, maybe in the name of these new age universities or emerging universities, keeping the global standard in mind and also to implement some of the suggestions made by national education policy. Since I am representing the NAC, I think you must be knowing, ever since the NAC started, almost 25 years, we have been struggling in order to reach and also accredit almost all higher education institutions. But the ground reality is not even 30% accreditation has been done. Therefore, institutions have emerged, and unless they come to this kind of accreditation process and prove themselves that the functions with which that they have started, they are proving, it is very difficult to consider them as new age universities. I think this is what I want to say right now. Of course, I may continue.
So I think your question is, what is the meaning of word new? To my understanding, new means a university which understands that change is the only constant. A university which understands that it's a very complex world, way beyond the VUCA. And if you're confused, it's okay. If you're not confused, you're not paying attention. A university which is ready to adapt continuously. A university which believes the student mindset is changing. We need to address the student needs, not what the faculty knows. And a university which believes that we exist as a bridge between the society and the industry. We are not an institution existing in silos to meet our own needs, but to meet the needs of the society. That is new.
First and foremost, thank you for having me here, to the entire organizing team, and wonderful to be amongst all of you physically. To me, the first thing that comes to my mind is anybody, any institution who believes and exhibits the fact that learning is not a spectator sport is clearly demonstrating the new age behavior. That's the first aspect of it. The second important aspect of it is the fact that it's important to embrace, absorb, and also guide your student community or the future professionals to the fact that we are in the midst of digital first. We are the youngest population in the world, and we are in the midst of digital first. And as long as we know and exhibit the fact that this is a super express highway to be encashed upon at the highest possible rate, and ensuring that we solve problems at scale, touching the lowest common denominator in the society with various facets that many of the eminent speakers here have mentioned, by looking at various problem-solving abilities and evoke action and reaction in a very smooth way, and also ensure that there is continuous unlearning, relearning, and there is an atmosphere created to be a failure, learn, and then figure out new ways by which you can improvise. That's New Age University.
All right, thanks everyone, and I think wonderful insights into what new is in the New Age universities. So, I very often in my discussions bring the fact that I firmly believe in that Brahma Vishnu Mahesh model: create, maintain, destruct. So, a quick question to you, Dr. Swamy, with so vast experience: if you were to stop doing certain things at higher education institutions from tomorrow, what do we destruct? What are the practices, policies that we have been following in higher education institutions in India till now that you think we must destruct if we have to become New Age institutions?
Yeah. Number one, I may start from restructuring their vision and mission. I think they have to look into the vision with which they wanted to start, and the mission with which they wanted to, and the core values with which they wanted to proceed. Because these are the controlling points, checkpoints, based upon which they can proceed the process of providing international standard education. Therefore, first point, if the curriculum is not up to the mark, I think they have to just go away with that and try to improve upon keeping the recommendations of maybe NEP on one side and keeping the international expectations on the other side. If you simply in order to make our students to go to foreign universities in a comfortable way, if you make our degree to become 4 years degree, I think that is not sufficient in my opinion. Then the second point, the teaching and learning, more emphasis should be given to the development of cognitive abilities. Mechanical rote way of teaching, I think no merit is of no use. Many teachers use PowerPoint presentations in most of the classes. With all my 47 years of teaching experience, I have to say, I think some of them are using because they use PowerPoint presentations because their power without that kind of PowerPoint presentation is less. Therefore, they want to make their power more by using the PowerPoint presentations. I think in a humorous way I said it. But thereby, merely adopting the mechanical way of using the technology, as my friend mentioned earlier, it is of no use. I think it's very difficult to substitute a holistic person who has got a lot of commitment to make his teaching more comprehensive, to convert the raw resources into a beautiful human being with better, higher personality developments. There it comes, the blend of the committed teacher on one hand and the committed, the practical way of using the technology on the other hand. Therefore, if they are outmoded, following the same rote method of teaching, they have to go with it, develop the cognitive abilities like critical thinking. Creative thinking may help them to become more innovative. They may come out with many industries have come out with a lot of creative ideas, but how many of them have survived? All those industries with critical component of thinking made them to survive with a lot of consistency, but mere mechanical way of going with divergent thinking, many of them have failed. Therefore, I think this is what I want to share. And last 2 or 3 points is, very quickly, the New Age universities means developing the skills among them. Developing the human values among them. I think without values, or even after 5 years or 10 years, what education can do? Somebody said the ultimate aim of science is destruction, what we are seeing right now. If it is based upon very good value foundation, I am sure that the science will make every human beings on this planet to become very happy. Therefore, New Age institutions should see the value component, technology component in a meaningful manner, curriculum design where the functional, felt need curriculum should be there, And the research should be given more emphasis, and the skill development should also be highlighted. I think some of them are already doing, but they need to do some kind of overhauling about all these things and to proceed. Thanks for your stimulating question. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Swamy. So my next question is to Professor Satyanarayana and Dr. Rao, that what is it from your experience at Raman Global University and VIT University, if you have to maintain and say, look, this is working very well, and we must continue to do this in the next phase of like New Age University, what are those few processes or policies that come to your mind?
I think, as all of us have already mentioned, change is the only concept, all around the day the key parameter. So, the New Age University has to be very clear that the foundation courses have to be ingrained very well. And from the day one, the foundation course, along with knowledge and skill, experiential learning through skilling, has to be linked seamlessly. And in that, bring in a design thinking component, but huge emphasis on fundamentals, because fundamentals don't change. All the new emerging areas are at the cusp and the interfaces of existing knowledge. So a huge emphasis on foundation, very strong foundation and ability to use it. And I mean the key is, that's what whether critical thinking, creative thinking, all of them is how to use, because we have so far the last 75 years delivering to know education. I mean, the previous sessions they said they went beyond, but most of the time the assessment was limited to know, to understand, to use, and to implement or think creatively. Problem solving are the new requirement. But for that problem solving, if the foundation is not good, nothing can happen. So we need to make sure we have a strong foundation on fundamentals, link it with skill, because now as a new education policy mandates it. We actually earlier had skills, but over a period when technology expansion happened, due to lack of resource, everybody limited to only to know information with no labs, no infrastructure, or at the most only some occasional simulation software. And therefore now that both software also enables, virtual labs are today available, the address technology is becoming more affordable, and maybe industries have to mandatorily grow, they need to work together. So one can actually go back to the original foundation, whether it is science, whether it is liberal arts, whether it is engineering, to both foundation knowledge and skill, working with them hands-on. The hands-on had been completely gone. So I think that is what we need to stick with. Once we stick with and then add to more experiential learning, project-based activity, and in that bring in social component, because that's what again was missing. The education had only become commercial. It had lost, the original value system. So bring in the social consciousness and add it to that now that has to mandatorily look into sustainability and circular economy requirements as an integral part of it, which again our culture and heritage always had it. So I think it is going back to the roots with strong understanding. And again, our original Indian Gurukula system also had the same mentoring that was spoken in the previous system. So how does every teacher truly become a mentor and an enabler, because it's learner-centric education. They are facilitators, mentors and enabler to student to realize his potential.
May I combine both your questions and answers? So there are many things which we need to stop because we are fundamentally wrong. For example, we want to prepare industry-ready students, and 99% of our faculty have never seen industry. So first of all, we need to change the recruitment policies, not just for the faculty, but also for the leaders at different level of the institutions. If there are people who have an understanding of academics, teaching, research, industry, have some international exposure, and also some digital competencies, only such people should be made the heads of institutions. But the recruitment policies are completely different. If you said Brahma, Vishnu, Mahesh, if we have to stop, we have to change the recruitment policies completely. NEP talks about achieving many things with the same set of people who were recruited for things that were happening before. So if for New Age University, you cannot accomplish the goals with the people of the old age. Second, if something has to be stopped, for me, the assessment examinations is taking 90% time of the faculty. I think we should completely stop having exams. It's not a very practical thing, or not that people will agree to, because that is the source of power for all the faculty and the heads of institutions. But we should stop that. We should stop making attendance compulsory. If the faculty has power, the students should be drawn. Right now the system is, you attend so many classes, then you will be allowed to give the exam, and then you have to pass the exam, which again the same faculty will give marks. Both the things are not working towards achieving our purpose. Instead, you should have projects that are application-based. Third is skill sets. We're talking skills, not talking of values. And we are talking of values, but we are not telling how to develop those values. To my mind, if you need to develop values in the students, first you need to develop values in the administrators and faculty of the institutions. Having values that means what you think, what you speak, you do. And in today's environment, in office system, university system, we also document the same. There should be a reason why you are doing something, you should document it. You should not prepare documentation just for the sake of showing somebody. If we are doing that in our universities, our students are observing that, they are learning it. There are many universities where children learn good values at home, but when they come to university, they see that it is, this is how the world behaves. And everybody who comes to a university, every single professional, doctor, engineer, lawyer, designer, lawmaker, policymaker, everybody goes to the institution. We have such an important role. If we don't demonstrate competence, clarity, courage, confidence, character in the people who run the universities, how do we expect all the citizens who are young children, young minds who come to the university and go out into, we say there is corruption, we say there is poverty, everything can be solved just if we change these things in our education system. We don't waste the time of all our people doing things which should be stopped, which are not contributing to the purpose of our education system.
Thank you so much. Supreeth, you've been working with multiple institutions and Adobe is doing great work with higher education institutions. What is it that you think is missing that needs to be introduced? What do we need to create afresh in higher education institutions for them to be new institutions?
Let me address this with two roles that I hold. One as lead for education at Adobe, I head the education, and then I'm also on the board of members for Haryana State Board of Technical Education. So I come from the academic administrative mind as well. So first things first is the fact that there is, I think one of the common thread I picked up is rote learning. You need to flip it. So long story short, can we make it 80-20? Can we have 80% pure play, practical orientation and 20% theoretical in nature? Because time and again it has been proven psychologically and also from an interest standpoint that more the problem solving, straight away you throw them on the field, get their hands dirty, it is higher probability that they would learn things, more practically than being, led 80% theoretical and 20% practical in nature. That's the first quick change that I would strongly recommend. It's hard. You'll find a dip in the, initial stages of adoption, but it's quick, once that curve or the timeline is passed, maybe 6 months or so. That's the first aspect of it. Second part of it is, please showcase your talent. Unless and until you show what are the gems you have within your universities, start with professors and faculties. It's important for you to market your product. I'm talking like a business guy right now, but trust me, this works. Unless and until you showcase what talent you have, nobody cares who you are. You may be 30-year, 40-year-old university or college, have great traditions, have great alumni. Doesn't matter. What got you here won't get you there. That's the reality. I won't send my kid to your university unless and until I know who are your stalwart batsmen and bowlers. Very, very clear. And the next generation today is clearly asking questions. Who is my subject matter expert in this area? If he or she is not able to correlate to the fact that you have the right talent, you may be the best brand in the education field. But who cares? I have Coursera, I have Adobe.com, I have something else online, I have YouTube. I can still go and refer to some of these videos. Period. Right? So it's important for you to showcase what great work your internal academicians are doing, whether it is research, whether it's analysis, whether it's teaching, whether it is to do with the academic output that they are delivering year on year as an area. And don't just restrict yourself to NAC or any other rating agencies. It's your consumer who comes first, that's your student. Then comes the rating agencies, your regulatory bodies. And even if you don't get great ratings, it doesn't really matter because your consumer rates you really well if you're doing a great job. And they will come to you. And ultimately, industry comes to you when they see a great consumer who's converted into a potential product for themselves. That's the second. The third important aspect, people aspect. Madam just spoke about people. And let me bring in a very important angle of best practices that we've been in the industry, and I've been inculcating this in many of our member forums in CI and Wiki as well. If you don't bring in a check-in model, start, stop, continue, and if somebody is not performing, if you do not have the guts to put them on PIP, you are as good as a failure as a leader yourself. I'm making a very provocative statement, but trust me, this is the fastest way to bring in transformation in any organization. It happens in every organization that I have worked for in the last 20 plus years, and I have not seen a single university or an education system in the last at least 4 decades doing any such or taking such step with respect to continuous assessment of where does one stand. Have they made improvements? Have you given them consistent feedback? And is there a better mechanism to manage talent? If you do not do that and set expectations, I think you are setting yourself for the future, because your success is dependent on how good is the faculty or administrators. Right? So these are 3 quick things. And last but not the least, use technology effectively, not because it is technology or software or you're buying it from the best of the brands in the world, but use it more effectively to deliver learning outputs. Assess them. What are the pluses? What are the minuses? Talk to various industry verticals. There is not harm to talk to them. And last but not the least, please immerse yourself, even if it is 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, in some industry. There's a lot of industries who are willing to take you as a prospective employee or mentor, because learning doesn't stop. I do it, out of interest. Many times I go and teach in universities, not because I want an alternative career, but for a simple reason, I want to understand what's happening on the other side. I go to social sectors, I help many of the NGOs, not because I have a great heart, I'm not, but at the same time I want to understand what's happening around you as well. If you do not understand what is the lowest common denominator in your society, your institutions, various things around you, I don't think you will be in a better position to teach. That's the whole point. Anyway, I'll rest it there.
Thank you. Quickly, Supreeth, I'll take just 5 minutes more quickly, right? So I have very specific pointed questions for the new age university. In some areas I particularly feel are very, very important. So I think the first biggest, I would say, obstacle in terms of institutions becoming really modernized is the change management. I think every single institution I have seen struggles with change management. So very quick question, and probably if you have a very specific answer in maybe half a minute, we're running out of time, Dr. Swamy. What is trick that you have seen work in change management at education institutions? Any trick that you can share with us?
Yeah, I think in the change management, first point, the resistance is there. The real challenge is how to minimize the resistance. The whole thing starts with that resistance regarding different aspects. When we think of entrepreneurship, like many universities have labeled themselves as entrepreneurship universities, like skilled universities, fine. The label is very good, but apart from that, how far that they can do justice is very important. As Madam has mentioned, with the whole system, it is very difficult to bring the new change. Therefore, what are the agents of change? We have to identify them. If possible, replace them, then train them, prepare them, make them to have the goal set and mindset. With that, I think it is possible for us to bring some kind of change and change management. I think these are my basic knowledge.
Thank you. And next question to you, Dr. Rao. I feel Indian higher education institutions also lack ambition. Things are going the way, okay, you're increasing admissions by 20-25%, or maybe life is good, right? But from VIT, which is one of the top private universities in India, do you think our higher education institutions are ambitious enough in going beyond the standard admission and placement rates? Because we still continue to advertise only placement records and other things, right? How do we bring ambition in institutions?
For any kind of change that you want, and you are talking about being more ambitious, let me quickly give you this example. See, VIT became #1 almost 4 or 5 years ago. Yes, I only joined 3 years ago, and what happens, because we were #1, our faculty thought we are the best. Yes, and I head the faculty development department, where I'm responsible for 2,000 faculty who teach 50,000 students every year. So they told me, we have this department for faculty development, but the existing people, they say they float programs and nobody registers. Yes, everybody must have experienced that. The moment you are a faculty, you feel you know everything. And if you're in the top institution, then you really feel that, yes. So the trick also that you asked, I also teach organizational development change management. So I told them the institution is great. If one department is not working, there will be some way. Allow me to do action research. I will find out what are the problems and provide a solution. It's easy to find out. The problem with most of the universities are they don't give this freedom to their people. I was given that freedom because many times we don't encourage people to speak about the problems and push it under the carpet. So they gave me a free hand. I had several dialogues with the different teams and directors of different functions. I identified the problems. I developed a fully integrated technology interface for faculty development systems before the pandemic. Not just technology, but putting myself in the shoes of the faculty, the administrators, because everybody has constraints, identifying them, and using my background and experience and exposure, I made the system. It was ready before the pandemic. In pandemic, it became 100 times more useful. During pandemic alone, we had 25,000 registrations in my 200 faculty development programs. So it is possible. These are the tricks. And you can create ambition. We should not always find fault. The same faculty, they were very, because if you don't give them what is valuable to them, why will they come and have ambition? You show that this exists. We got international resource persons, industry experts, IBM, Microsoft, Google, everybody you name on earth, blockchain, IoT, cloud computing, anything. And the ambition came up.
Thank you. Professor Satyanarayana, there are amazing universities that have come up in the last decade in India, but if you look at their fees, they're very expensive. So does that mean new age universities will only be expensive? How do you bring affordability?
I think education by definition doesn't come under the purview of business. So affordability has to be the #1 parameter of the university. And a good quality university has to look at provisioning for all students, but leverage its student capability and faculty capability and infrastructure to deliver research and consultancy and societal engagement activity that students, people come back and contribute either through foundation endowment CSR or the research and consultancy generates revenue, and then therefore this has to effectively then lead to affordability for students, and it should be open for all. And I'm sure everybody knows that if you look at the top 100 universities, their average fee is 6 to 8% or 10%. 90% of their revenue comes from research, consultancy, and endowments. So in India, I think unfortunately we have no sustainable model. Very sorry for my comments. The best of government institutions are unsustainable. They cannot be followed by anybody. I mean, because government has funded so much over the last 75 years and their ROI is, I will not talk about it. And the private institutions, of course, I mean, there are so many government norms and constraints, but I think we need to work within the constraint. I cannot blame anything. So within the system, how do I build is a key requirement, and that is where system thinking, design thinking, and all the things that you asked earlier, how do you bring in a win-win engagement for both faculty and the student? I mean, it cannot be only student-centric. It is student-centric, definitely, but then above all, the facilitator is the faculty. How do you create an excitement equally in the faculty? And therefore create a process that ownership, as everybody has mentioned already, ownership, and then the ownership with facilitation for deployment, development, and of course accountability with reward and incentive. And I think if you do it with the system thinking overview, it is feasible. And I can just say that in the last 8 years, or in 3 institutions, wherever I have had the privilege of working with wonderful faculty and great management who had vision, we have been able to create in an Indian academic environment, I mean, investment-based outcomes in private institutions with over 200 crore of government grants. With institution, for example, for 45 years, 2 crores, 3 crores, and in next, 5.5 years, about 100 crores. Or a new university in 3.5 years generating 400 crores from government and private. And again, now we are in one more new university. We have created maybe India's best skilling environment, and then leveraging it to seamlessly with knowledge, so that every student has inherent skill exposure, knowledge exposure, and again, incentivizing the teacher that in every act and assignment, teaching them design thinking to see that it leads to product, process, solution enabling, so that every assignment leads to an outcome that both student and teacher have benefits. So it's a question of how do you build that system, and therefore then say how, and with the system thinking again, you optimize the activity to minimize the cost to deliver. We are happy to say today we are delivering, say, at least for about 50 girl students free education from, so we are only a 2-year university, and similarly another 400 people are being enabled with a lot more subsidy, and hundreds of students under various skilling program are even enabled free. And I think most students, institutions have to look at seriously enabling. I mean, we cannot get best of people now. Whomsoever we have, we will have to transform them, and from that create value so that we can still deliver affordable. And because when we go now from the current, say 30 or 40 million to 100 million in higher education, when education is expected to go from something like the current 6 trillion to 7.5 trillion in next 5 years, I think Indian students can never afford. And that's why it is never called as business, it's always called as service, and nobody even challenges whatever I give a mark. So affordability is a byword that we will have to see how to enable.
Thank you. Final question to you, Supreeth, and if you can sum up quickly, how do we boost creativity? Not just teaching creativity, but also creativity in teaching itself at higher education institutions.
So, I think the fundamental aspect of creativity boils back to one simple aspect, which is visualization is a technique, right? There's a saying, right? So similarly, is a societal aspect of it. Psychologically, if you are able to visualize a, object, subject, anything for that matter, and that is what I think traditionally has been taught. If you look at our schooling system, you write a paragraph, you put a, image to it, and then you put forward your, conclusions across. So if you were to extrapolate that today, there are areas which are very complex for students to comprehend, understand, assimilate, and then look at it. So there are all 5 fingers are not of the same size. Some people are readers of text, some people are learners of voice, and some people by image, some people by videos, some people by gaming, some people by challenging them. Right? So there are different techniques that you look at. So technology today is playing a pivotal role in one important area if used effectively. Personalization is enabled here. Right? The way in which how retail, and various industry verticals use it. Education needs to be using this route to personalize. The moment you get into personalization as a technique, and creativity will definitely play a crucial role in this. There is nothing called a meritocratic student who's really bright and somebody who's probably down. There's nothing called ranking or rating that comes into it. Everybody have their own strengths. Then you'll be leveraging, various technology tools to achieve various means. Somebody is good in art, somebody is good in archaeology, somebody is good in literature, somebody is good in technology. Right? How do you identify that? That is only by permutation combination of experimenting using creativity across. That is from a teaching level. From a student standpoint, project orientation or the 80-20 that I just spoke about, a few minutes back, is very critical, and that comes purely by bringing in creativity. And if you were to look at addressing a 500 million youth today, it's practically impossible for you to do personalization and drive creativity. And that's where technology tools, incidentally I work for Adobe and I'm promoting this. It's a fantastic platform which is time and again proven. We touch about 1.3 billion students every year for the last 39 years. Right? It works like a gem. There are many such tools and platforms available. Unless and until you experiment, iterate new ideas and then, incubate it and bring it to bigger scale, I don't think we'll be able to solve the problem of GER and a whole other set of issues that we are talking about. Thank you.
Thank you to the eminent panelists for taking our time, sharing your insights, and thank you everyone for being a part of this.
Thank you so much, Hemant. Besides Hemant, each and every panelist have put in. I thought Supreeth was overtaking Hemant out here, but it was a wonderful, I would say, power-packed panel discussion. A round of applause to our panelists here.